Ike Skelton here on Lake Ozark Real State-of-the-Art Studios, Radio Free Missouri. Phone number is 573-746-8020. Another good show tonight, and thank you for being with us. Tonight, as we normally do, we talk some local politics a lot. We interview some folks. We talk about some political philosophy, and one of the things we really like to talk about is liberty and freedom. And one of the biggest problems we have is our federal government wanting to do various things when it comes to our liberties and our freedoms. So tonight we're going to dig into something that I touched on probably back in 2012 or something of that nature, when I was really first getting into being on the radio and really getting my my footsteps getting into politics and liberty and the freedom movement. And I stumbled across an interesting thing called asset forfeiture and civil asset forfeiture. It is something you can Google and look it up. We're not going to talk a whole lot about exactly what it is so much. We're going to talk about its effects. And through it, we'll definitely talk about a few things and expand on it. If you'd like to call in, it's 573-746-8020. I have a special guest in my studio this evening, but we're going to get started real quick here with just a little bit of a headline from 2010. The DEA, Missouri State Highway Patrol, and U.S. Attorney's Office are trying to seize Camp Zoe, a 350-acre campground in central Missouri that hosts the music gathering Schwagstock, after a 4-year-long investigation allegedly uncovered rampant drug use and sales on the property. According to a complaint filed November 8, 2010 in Eastern Missouri District Court, quote, over the past several years, I'm going to come back to that, but think about that for just a minute. Over the past several years, law enforcement agents have specifically observed the open sales of cocaine, marijuana, LSD, ecstasy, psilocybin mushrooms, opium, and marijuana-laced food products by individuals attending the music festival and made multiple undercover purchases of illegal drugs. The paperwork shows that the authorities hope to use a mechanism called asset forfeiture to take the property. Under a forfeiture, they would not need to convict the property's owners of a crime or even charge them with one. The burden of proof is much lower. The Camp Zoe property is located about 150 miles southwest of St. Louis, near the town of Salem. It is owned and operated by Jimmy Tebeau, a member of the local Grateful Dead tribute band, The Schwag. The complaint alleges that Tebeau, who has not been charged with a crime, and other Camp Zoe staff members were in the immediate area when the drug deals went down and took no immediate action to prevent the activity. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening my special guest is Jimmy Tebeau. How you doing, Jimmy?
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
I really appreciate you being here. As I mentioned a minute ago, I've been talking about this stuff. You didn't even know you, and I was talking about what happened to you back in those days. And it just fascinated me and infuriated me, the entire story. And then a guest of this show, Nathan, let me know that, hey, he's right here and you can talk to him. And I thought, no way. And we got together and we met and we talked a little bit. I've heard a good chunk of your story, but I believe it is just, it's an incredible, unfortunate story. It's a fascinating story, and I think that other people need to hear it. I'm sure others have. But here in Camden County, it's time to hear it again, because we're going to do a little thing, and we're going to do a little thing in Camden County. I'm the presiding commissioner, for those that don't know, of Camden County, Ike Skelton. And we're going to do something in Camden County, and we've kind of already done a part of it. We are going to prohibit the use of federal asset forfeiture in Camden County, because I just kind of believe it's absolute theft. I'm pretty sure you agree with me.
I do. Yes. Yes. There's a clear abuse of it. And then I can also see, where it could be used effectively like it was supposed to be, but I could see where it's clearly abused in situations.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and get right into it. I know people want to hear the nuts and bolts of what really happened in those days. And you can start us. I know you've been interviewed, especially back in the day, but start us wherever you want to go. We've got about 2.5 hours here we can play with. So we'll work with it and just tell us your story, sir.
Oh, that's great. Well, I was putting on music festivals before I bought Camp Zoe. In fact, one of the places I'd done them as early as 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 was at the base of Bagnell Dam here at the Lake Ozarks area. And at the time, it was the American Legion Hall had the lease on the place, so I would give them like $5,000, and we'd come down and party there for the weekend, and we charge like $35 to come in and see my band play. We'd do a Grateful Dead tribute, and then I get a few other tribute bands and some regional groups, and then we would set up some vendors, and it was a nice little thing we were doing. I'd do it there. I'd also rent like Ozark Outdoors in Leesburg, or we'd do maybe a commercial campground in Lesterville, Missouri. The event moved around, but we started drawing so many people that it made more sense to buy a piece of property and customize it. Because here at the lake, there was certain weekends that would work, and then we'd have to work with the American Legion Hall and what other events were booked there, and sometimes we couldn't get the weekends we wanted.
So for about 3 years, you were doing this Schwag stock show, your shows and your venues and your concerts here at Lake of the Ozarks.
We give from 2000 to 2001 or 2000. It was 4 years: 2000,
cool.
2001, 2002, and 2003. 2004 is when we bought Camp Zoe, and prior to that, we were even doing other campgrounds. But I was like partners with the Bass brothers out of Steelville and Leesburg on one of their facilities. They have a 300-acre facility. They've sold them since, but at the time we were doing up to 7,000 people on a weekend.
Wow.
And that's those brothers are so successful with their camping and floating operations that this was just like a little bit of icing on the cake at the beginning of the season and at the end. Right in the middle of the season, I couldn't get any dates with that campground because they were filled up anyway.
Yeah, Bass was a huge operation down there. If you've never been down around the Steelville area, it's a huge operation.
It is, yeah. And then those brothers, I learned a lot about business from them, being partners with them. And the whole 4 years I was with them, they'd never sign a contract with me. It was all a verbal agreement. They're like, if two men can't trust each other and work together on their word, it's not. So I learned a lot about ethics too, and deals and stuff, and how to run campgrounds. In fact, it was Bear Bass that, after our last event there in 2003, we're sitting there counting like $200,000 on a table that we had just brought in. He's like, Jimmy, I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but you should buy your own property. You'd make a lot more money than giving me a big chunk of it to come here and use it for a weekend. And he actually was a consultant when I bought Camp Zoe. Bear Bass came out and gave me a free consulting thing on how to get the place going and getting it. If he wasn't so busy at the time, he would have been a partner in on it.
Wow.
But
So you're at Bass Floating Campground. How many years did you do it there?
Same as here at Lake the Ozarks. It was 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. These events were so successful that one year we did Memorial Day weekend here at the lake. The next weekend was off. The next weekend we were in Leesburg, and here we'd get about 3,000 people down there at the base of the dam, and that's when we'd spill up to the top of the dam and into that parking lot, and people would walk down. So we were outgrowing that venue, and then at Bear's place we were hitting 7,000 people, and it was cramming it full. So we felt it was time to buy a piece of property and customize it, and then we could select the dates that we wanted. We were missing a lot of the middle of the summer stuff. We would do that more here at Lake the Ozarks. I did get Memorial Day weekend down there at the base of the dam, which was big. And then we'd do something like a little bit later in July. And then at the Bass Brothers, we'd be early season, like early June and then mid-September. So I started looking for a piece of property, and we went and looked at a lot of different properties. And it was 2003 into 2004 that I started applying to banks for bank loans. This was prior to 2008. Banks were handing out loans to just about anybody if you had a pulse, And
Right.
Here I am. I had great credit at the time. I also had some equity in a house. But this one property we found, $530,000. Former Camp Zoe, former youth camp. Down by Salem, Missouri, just south of there, closer to Eminence, really.
God's country.
Yeah,
It's beautiful down there.
And it ran as a youth camp from like for 30 or 40 years, and it was more of a high-end kids camp. Like if you were a family with some money, you could go down there type thing.
Sure.
And but then it became a failed church camp after that. Or no, wait a minute, a private family retreat for about 8 years, and then it became like this failed church camp before we got it. Like hardly anyone was going down there. They had really strict rules where there was no music, no bikinis allowed, no smoking on the beach, and they weren't bringing in any business. And so we moved in, and we got the place like in March of 2004. And we only had a matter of 7 weeks to get it ready for Memorial Day. And this was before the internet.
Right.
How we got the word out is we had about 10,000 people on our mailing list. So we mailed out about 10,000 postcards at the beginning of May saying, hey, we got this new place. Here it is. Here's directions. Come on out. And we were doing 7,000 people, in Leesburg. And we didn't think maybe we'd drop down to 1,000 to 2,000 and build back up. But that first event, when we weren't ready, 4,000 people plus showed up.
Wow.
And we had bulldozers in there making space as they were pulling in. Right. We partnered with one of the neighbors down there that had excavators and bulldozers, and they were in on the deal.
There you go.
And they fronted all their work. They were gambling with us. It's like, if nobody showed up, we're not getting
Well,
paid.
you had a track record.
We had a really good track record. And the fact that I said I was partners with the Bass Brothers carried a lot of weight.
I'm sure it did.
Because those guys are real smart and real tight, and they're just not partnering with anyone.
Right.
Especially at that time, because they were so successful, they really didn't need to. And if they were, then it had to benefit them.
Sure, of course.
So, and any references, and they maybe even knew family members or whatever, but they came over and got that place shaped up. Because when we moved in, a lot of the roads were overgrown. And the bathroom houses needed work, and we needed to put in a bigger, better road system to get people in there. We put in 13 new poles of electricity right away, put in a couple stages, and then we were up and running. And how we're making money is ticket sales plus ancillary sales. We have a general store, and then we have a restaurant as well. So we're selling a lot of food and packaged liquor and tickets, And it was a nice profit margin because owning our own place, the overhead wasn't as bad.
Sure, of course.
When we're paying rent, and then we're renting golf cars, renting PA systems, renting stages and everything. Instead, we were buying stages, buying PA systems, buying the golf cars, and then it was long-term investment. And the long play was I was building equity for myself. I thought maybe by the time I'm 60, I could have $1 million or $2 million built up in equity in the property. And the idea was to take a $500,000 piece of property and turn it into a $5 million piece of property, through the, capital gains value or whatever, or the cap rate and that. But, and we had, I think, 7 full seasons there. And we were, because we were up and running in 2004, and we went through all the way to the end of 2010.
So 1, 2, 3, you were doing it here at the lake and down at Bass, and then in 04, you got the piece of property there at Camp Zoe, and continued on until, of course,
until 2010. Yeah, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and we were raising the ticket prices. We were offering more bands. We were having all kinds of bands out there, like Marshall Tucker Band would come down there, George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, Los Lobos. Some big names, and we were doing so well. Some of these acts, I would hire them to open for my band, which was a real big ego boost for me. And still, a lot of the people were there to see what we were putting out.
Sure.
But they're like, "Oh, Marshall Tucker Band, that's great." I got to actually sit in with those guys for a show. And really, if I won the lottery any time through that, I would have still done it, because the ultimate joy for me was to get in front of all those thousands of people and to play music.
There you go.
And we would do a different show every night. We'd play like 3 events in a row. And our shows, in case the listeners don't know, the Schwag show, we're a tribute to the Grateful Dead. So we'd do 2.5 to 3 hours a night, 2 nights in a row, no song repeats. Then 4 weeks later, do 2 more shows with not repeating any of those songs. So if a lot of the people came back, they would see a different selection of songs. And we're real improvisational. Like, we would take the songs in different directions from night to night. We would take the listeners on a journey. I would rehearse the band up to 3 hours a day starting on that Tuesday. And I was hiring some high-end musicians that I'd fly in from New York or California. I had more than half of the band String Cheese Incident back me up for some shows where I'd hire their 2 drummers, the guitar player, and then I'd have a keyboardist from the Berklee School of Music play, and they'd come in, and I'd have the song list, and I'd rehearse them all week. I'd pay them really well, put them up the Holiday Inn in Salem.
Sure.
And really, that was for me the big thing is I just want to play music. I want to wield my craft, and can I also pull off a great real estate business deal and make money? Because it's hard to make money as a musician and money to really talk about unless you're a big recording artist and you have a big record deal.
And those breaks don't come quite as quick as a lot of people think.
No, they don't. You hear that fantasy story here and there of this band made it in this band, but that's out of tens of thousands of bands, so it's rare. But so the whole time I just wanted to play music, and then people wanted to come to these events. There was a real communal gathering. And at the time, in the early 2000s, I was pretty much the only guy doing that sort of event. You'd hear of, there was this Ozark blah, blah, blah event. And it was in 1977. It was one event on the fairgrounds.
Right.
Nothing happened
One
since
time
then.
and gone.
Yeah. It's not like, this happens like 5 times a year. Or, hey, you can also go to this place and just camp. We're starting to do a really good business just with camping. I had this phase 3 plan put together where we were going to build a bunch of cabins, a hotel, like 100-room hotels, and then 100 cabins, 100 RV sites, because we're getting 5,000 to 7,000 people. 300 of them would step up and upsell to some better lodging. Because more and more people were asking about it. We did have 11 cabins there, but we used them for offices and staff. But people are like, name your price, I want a cabin.
Yeah, sure.
So I was starting to work with venture capitalists and different real estate investors, and we were going to build out the place. And that was where we thought we could make the most money, was renting cabins. And then just playing the music would be for fun. But so each year it kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I was surprised in 2010. Well, let me back up a little bit. I'm in the band The Schwag at the time, which is my band. I'm the leader. But during that time, in 2009, I got hired by the Jerry Garcia Band out of San Francisco to be their full-time bass guitarist. This is an offshoot of the Grateful Dead.
Now, before you're even doing that, your own band is going around the country and doing other things as well, not just down on your properties.
Yeah,
right?
I should say that. We were doing up to 200 shows a year, touring all over the country, doing this Grateful Dead shtick.
So you weren't even down at Camp Zoe a lot of times, were you?
No, I wasn't. Through the summer, I would stay down there quite a bit, but through the winter, I was touring around quite a bit. And one of the bands I kept hiring every year was Jerry Garcia Band, JGB, featuring Melvin Seals. Jerry Garcia died in 1995, but the Grateful Dead kept going without him, and so did JGB, Jerry Garcia Band. So I'd hire them to open for my band. And each time they'd show up, they'd have a different bass guitarist. I'm like, so I asked the band leader, I'm like, when's it my turn? And the band leader is Melvin Seals, who played 15 years with Jerry Garcia, played at his wedding, played at his funeral.
Wow.
And so he finally hired me. He thought I was overqualified. Here I own a venue and I have my own popular band, and I would be the hired side guy in this band.
Yeah, sure.
But I figured getting in his band, I could play venues that I couldn't get into.
There you go.
So now I'm playing like the Great American Music Hall downtown San Francisco with this band. So there was 2009, 2010. I was in 2 bands and owned a popular venue. And Jerry Garcia Band was doing more like East Coast runs where we'd be gone 14 days and I'd do 10 shows. And all those shows were different. And then we'd do the same thing on the West Coast. We'd even go up to Canada and do festivals up there. One time we filled in for the Greg Allman Band because Greg got sick. It was that era. He was getting sick.
Okay.
And so I'm doing all these great gigs, playing with all these great musicians, learning more, mastering more of my skills, and bringing in great entertainment. So 2010, we did a series of shows throughout the summer, and we'd usually end the season with a Halloween event called Spookstock. And it'd be the end of October. We'd set up a 300-foot-long circus tent type thing. It was 60 feet wide, 21 feet high. And we'd have 3,000 to 4,000 people show up to camp at the end of October because we had a heated tent, and we would just run our program in the tent. It was also a vendor fair. I think a lot of people came for because we'd set up like 40 vendors, and people would sell tie-dyes or stuff that they made. So it was real like fair type atmosphere.
Sure.
And And at that particular event, I had to play Friday and Saturday there with the Schwag. And then after the show Saturday at 1 a.m, I get shuttled up to the airport in St. Louis, and I catch a 5 a.m. flight to San Francisco, get in a shuttle there, and I'm playing the big Halloween event of Northern California. It was called the Los Tortugas Festival. It was kind of their version of what I was doing in Missouri. And our set is at like 3 a.m. At that event. We were the last band to play. And on the bill of that one was the Bill Kreutzmann Band, Bill Kreutzmann being the Grateful Dead drummer. So I'm hanging out backstage with the Grateful Dead drummer. And then right before us was the Yonder Mountain String Band. And then we went on 3 a.m, played till 4:30 in the morning. And then it was the next morning on that Monday, there was a raid at Camp Zoe. I was up in the mountains of California at the time, so I couldn't get any cell service. It's when we got back to San Francisco, which I had a recording session that day at a studio. And I'm calling my wife once I get cell service to tell her I was hanging out with Bill Kreutzmann, the drummer of the Grateful Dead, the night before. Sure. And she's like, "Shut up, listen to me. The place got raided." I'm like, "Well, why? What do you mean raided?" She's like, "A bunch of police cars and police, I guess it was a pretty big production, a number of police cars, and then like RVs, mobile RVs, one that said DEA, another one that said IRS, and all those 3-letter vans."
Yeah.
And
alphabet agencies.
Yeah.
The ones you never want to see.
And apparently they were, I got more information as the day went on. They were there all day long, and they had search warrants, and they didn't have warrants for anyone's arrest. But and at that point, there was 4,000 people there that weekend. But by that Monday, there's only 200 or 300 people left, or whatever.
Yeah, stragglers getting out.
Yeah, but they went through everything, every building. I'm not too sure what they were looking for. Because we tried really hard to do everything as professional as we can. Every penny that came in, I ran through the bank because I was proud of our gross revenue.
Sure.
And I wanted to be clean. I wasn't burying any money, and I didn't need to. And we had a good rapport with the bank there in Eminence, and we were running a lot of that. Last year I was in business. We in 2010 we grossed like $1.7 million, which is pretty good for 2010. And considering we didn't have any cabin revenue, that was all ticket sales, general store stuff. And so I was surprised there was a raid. They looked through the place all day long, and as the day went on, more and more of the RVs left and the police cars left, and they saved my house for last. And they went through the whole house, and I had an old beat-up safe in the closet that I hadn't even used in a while. Forgot the combination, put the key away, because I thought if somebody's going to steal from me, they're going to grab the whole safe. I didn't even have it bolted in, so But they got down to that. They busted it open. There wasn't anything in there. But they didn't really find anything the whole day. They didn't find the smoking gun, and I still don't know what they were looking for.
Did they? Well, I mean, obviously, in their complaint, they've been surveilling you for past several years. Let's just stop aside for a second, because I told everybody I was going to bring that up.
Let's do that.
Listeners, did you hear what so for several years, these agencies allowed you and these folks to commit all of these heinous crimes they want to talk about, all of this horrible stuff. They're just going to let you get away with it for 4 years, or how many ever years it was, several, they say. And then all of a sudden, bam, they want to drop the hammer. And in the long run, and my friends, that should bother you more. None of this story is good. And we're going to talk a little bit afterwards at the end of this story here, just about the entire atmosphere. I mean, obviously, if you don't know what we're talking about that goes on at this Schwag stock sometimes, that certain individuals do at their homes, and then they bring it wherever else they go, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because I don't know, it's private property as far as I'm concerned. So they show up. Do you know if they searched any of your campers?
I don't know. No, I don't think they searched any of them. I did hear that they were like, we need to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And if the people said, no, I'm not talking to you, they couldn't force them into a vehicle. But I talked to a few friends that are like, no, I went in there just to see what they wanted to know. And they kept asking me questions about, does Jimmy Tebeau sell drugs? You know, which I never did and never needed to. We were bringing in millions of dollars. You know, why would I need to sell a bag of weed, you know, to make a few extra $50 here and there? There was no reason for it. Our other big revenue generator was we'd sell merchandise for our band. We were doing $5 to $8 grand in merchandise sales per event. And there was a nice margin on that stuff. So I was confused by the whole thing because I had professional accountants and I was reporting when I was supposed to. And I was paying bills. And the other odd thing is, through the whole thing, I kept asking the Salem police and the local sheriff department if we could hire them with off-duty officers, which we always did at the base of Bagnell Dam. We hired the Lake Ozark Police Department to be security there, and we would pay him off duty.
Okay, we got to stop for just a second. So in 01, 2, and 3, you had Schwag stock down at the base of Bagnell Dam, and Lake Ozark PD was the security.
They were, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 4 full years where we had, I don't know if it was a partnership. I just hey, can I hire?
No, I get it.
Can I hire some of your uniformed officers off duty if they want to pick up some extra hours to wear their uniform, to do a lap around the place when somebody's being an idiot, you kick them out.
Right.
Which at these events, everyone's pretty mellow. Occasionally you get a drunk knucklehead who wants to fight, and we need someone to gracefully extract them and get them away from everyone so they don't bum anyone out, so they don't hurt themselves, whatever. And there's a few stories I could tell there where just there's, a drunk guy fresh out of the military on leave, and he's just hammered, and to where the police were really good. The one guy threw a beer bottle at the stage while I was playing, and it exploded on my bass, and the crowd chased him. Security grabbed him, and the police held him until the show was over.
Probably saved his life.
Probably. He was super drunk, But they want to know if I wanted to press charges, and I'm like, no, let's just let him go and get him out of here. And the police said, hey, if we let you go, will you behave yourself? Instead, he tried headbutting the police, and they're like, well, we're putting him in timeout for the night. But that's how great they were. And we were giving them like $25 an hour, which I think it was a little bit more than their usual wage. So they loved it, and it was an easy gig. They'd have a presence at the gate, they'd drive their police car around, and if they heard of something weird going on, or hey, this camp might be doing something weird over here, whether it was nudity or open drug use, they'd go over and say, hey guys, mellow out, or we're going to have to boot you.
Right.
Occasionally they would boot people.
Sure.
So, and also at Barrabass's place in Leesburg, we would hire someone from the local sheriff department. So for years, we always had police presence at our events.
And was that event at Bass, was that also labeled Schwag Fest?
Yeah, Schwag Stock, yeah.
Schwag Stock,
yeah. And we always put a number on them. We're up to Schwag Stock 52.
51.
Well,
52
we just did
51.
51. You were at 51, and the next one will be 52.
Yeah, that's where we, and so since you brought that up, I was going to leave that for a little bit, but that's okay. That's where I actually shook your hand. I talked to you on the phone beforehand, and I wanted to come out, and I wanted to, hey, look, you can hear an awful lot of things, and you can hear everybody else's opinion, but until you use your eyes to see what's happening, you have no idea for sure. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to see what was all about. Because I've heard it. You were doing it down at, you were holding these events down at the Regalia, were you not?
We were doing
something
events similar to it.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was the marketing and entertainment director at the Regalia Resort at Lake Ozark for 4 years until releasing. But we can circle back.
Yeah, we can circle. Exactly. So I wanted to come out, and again, I just wanted to see what was going on because people say Schwag Stock, Schwag Fest. They think they know what's happening. Well, until you show up there and look, you don't know what's happening. And I'll tell you. What you just said a little bit ago about people are just, they're cool, they're mellow, they're having fun, listening to music, a little bit of dancing. People were sitting all around in your armchair, your camping chairs, lawn chairs. There was some a few kids running around. I did not see one bit of illicit drug usage, and I didn't see any drunks or craziness going on at all that evening. And we were there, I don't know, a good 3 hours. We got there a little later than I wanted to, and we played until you were done. And that was something fascinating I felt too, is yes, folks, there's a lot of musicians out there, but you guys went from song to song to song. The only break you took was to maybe tell what the next song was. But take us on back to Camp Zoe again, now that we got that filled in.
All right, yeah. So, yeah, they came in and raided the place. which was really bizarre. It was the end of the season, and we weren't going to do any shows in November, December, January, February, March, but we were going to kick back up in April of 2005, and here we have tens of thousands of regulars coming out there. We were averaging 30,000 people a year, different tickets that we were selling.
Maybe like this article said, you were getting too good.
I don't know. Maybe there was some jealousy and resentment of, damn, this guy's successful, but you think they would cheer me on. But so I was scratching my head. I'm like,
they searched your house, opened the safe, didn't find nothing.
They didn't find anything. Yeah. And then I don't get charged for anything for months. And I'm like, and they confiscated a lot of stuff, not really music equipment, but a lot of files and stuff. They ultimately gave it all back, and none of it was used to charge me with anything. I mean, ultimately, they did charge me with a crime, and it was a federal law, super obscure. It's 21 USC 856, also known as the Rave Act, also known as the Crack House Law, but officially known as managing a drug-involved premises, which they wanted to use. And it's an obscure law. Nobody's ever been charged, prosecuted, and imprisoned for it except for me. As far as I know, I'm the only guy that has ever been. Maybe someone's been charged and they challenged it and it got dropped.
Or they had enough junk on them otherwise they didn't even need to use it.
Right, they dropped
some plea bargain. Yeah, we'll drop this as long as we get you on this.
But I think early on they thought I think what they thought is I was like this Charles Manson guy, and I was the kingpin that was bringing in like wholesale drugs, and I'd have runners running around. But then the other thing is when they did charge me with this, they give you like some evidence to look at, and I went through every police report for 4 years. And I added up every little thing that they got. And in 4 years, they were able to buy 3.5 ounces of weed in like nickel bags from guys in their early 20s that were just trying to make an extra buck or two or make enough for their own stash.
Sure.
And I didn't know who these guys were, and I definitely wasn't supplying them. And it's just ridiculous. Even if I was, what kind of low amount of money would I be making compared to what I was already making? There was no reason for it.
So that's fascinating you say that, because this story comes from the Riverfront Times. They're now defunct, but it's the Riverfront Times. And it says federal agents seized the land in 2010, saying drug dealers were selling $500,000 worth of drugs. They never showed any of that evidence.
No, I kept looking and looking through all this evidence to find out where they got that figure from. Because what they actually, when they make a buy, they got to test it. I saw the lab reports, and I think total in 4 years they got like 1.5 grams of cocaine that they bought in little bits. So it wasn't like kilos or anything. And I added up the street value of everything that they had in these police reports, and it was less than like $4,000. If you add up those 3.5 ounces for the going rate that time, they're 1.5 grams of cocaine. 4 years to get that.
4 years.
If you went to Bonnaroo, the music festival in Manchester, Tennessee, you could get all that in the first half hour.
Right.
And I even asked the prosecuting attorney about that, and he's like, "Well, my jurisdiction isn't Tennessee, so what that prosecutor decides to do." So where I found that they said it was 5, they really fudged this. They had one guy. These undercovers would pull in an RV and they'd park in the RV section. They had one police report where they went to their neighbor who was in an RV, and they're like, "Hey, you know where to get any cocaine?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the cocaine kingpin here. I can sell you ounces. I sell 1/2 pound of cocaine every event here." And I never saw any cocaine going on. There's sure people were smoking weed and there was a little bit of psychedelics here and there, but it was definitely never a cocaine scene at all. And I was reading this going, man, who is this guy? What is this? And then they went back later to make a buy from him. And in the report, the guy's like, "Man, I was just messing with you guys. I don't do any cocaine." But because he made the statement that he sells 1/2 pound of cocaine each time, it was a statement by their neighbor in an RV. I still have the police reports. That's where they got Oh, it's been documented that $500,000, and they, then they really twist the price of cocaine and double it and retail it or whatever.
Sure.
But there was never any cocaine sales out there. It was, we're a tribute to the Grateful Dead, and look at their fans would smoke weed. Now at the time, marijuana was still illegal. And another thing they would do, the local police, is they would set up roadblocks on the public road going in from both directions. And they would search every car looking for weed. And they would love to write tickets for weed. And they'd love to take the people's weed.
They were making money too.
They were making money too. And we had repeatedly asked these police departments and sheriff's departments to work for us. Hey, we've always had police officers. Will you work for us $25 an hour off duty? We'll give you 30. What's it going to take?
Right.
And they wouldn't do it. None with jurisdiction in the area. We were getting St. Louis police officers down there, but they didn't have the power to arrest. But they had uniforms and cars, and they sure made people straighten up when they walked up. But they kept refusing, and I found out later that they were instructed not to help us
because they knew the undercover was happening.
Yeah. Now, it still made no sense to me when they charged me with this. And I hired the biggest, best lawyer in St. Louis, Scott Rosenblum, and his right-hand man was Gil Cison at the time, who was an adjunct law professor at Washington University. And Scott and Gil could not wrap their head around this. Incidentally, Gil is now a federal judge. And still my buddy, still got his number in my phone.
Sure.
His wife had their triplets while I was going through all this. So,
Wow.
And this went on for like a year,
Oh,
and
of course, they don't do anything.
I spent like $30,000 in defense. And Gil Cison, he kept scratching his head. I'm like, what's going on? What's really going on? Is this a political thing? Do they want the property? Because it kept seeming like they kept saying, hey, just sign over the property and do a plea deal. Sign over the property, sign over the property. If they wanted the property, they could have called me, because apparently I can do this party anywhere. It doesn't have to be there. I would have been, let's get it appraised. I would have sold it to him, and let's get it appraised, because I would have made a few bucks. At the time, I only owed $347,000 on it. I was making steady payments, and I put in probably $200,000 or $300,000 in improvements. So if we got it appraised, it would have probably came at $1.2 million. So I had, $750,000 in equity in it. That was my nest egg. That was my retirement.
Right.
Because every penny I was getting, I was putting in, improving the roads and new bathrooms, and then we were going to work with the bank or some private equity, and we were going to boost that place up and really make some money on cabin rentals and that. So, but I was trying to figure out why they wanted the property so bad and why they were doing it. Ultimately, the plea deal came down to, they said, hey, sign the property over to us. We'll pay off that $347, so you're clear. And it does. It shows in my credit history that I borrowed $530,000 and I paid it all the way off. So my credit score is good. And they did do that. But then I gave up all my equity. And also, incidentally, the day they raided the property, they raided my bank account, and they grabbed $180,000 out of that. And for the plea deal, they're like, we'll give that money back to you. Which I needed really bad.
Sure,
and
of
at
course.
the time I was married and had 2 kids. They were like age 2 and 5 or something, and they were living on the property. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. At the time, my band's still popular. I'm still in the Jerry Garcia band. I'm trying to figure out if we can get open for the next season, because they dragged their feet for months before they actually charged me. And then I'm like, why are they charging me? They wanted to charge me so they could use asset forfeiture, because they have to charge you with a crime. Yeah. They scratched their heads for 4 years and couldn't figure out what to charge me with. So they found this obscure law, and they could only charge me with it if the property was in my personal name, which it was. And I should have put it in an LLC. I should have, been a little bit. And the prosecutor actually told me that, afterwards. He's like, yeah, if you would have put it in an LLC, we wouldn't have been able to charge you with that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So they were like, oh, this is perfect. But I still couldn't figure out why they wanted that property so bad. So it's when I got out of prison that I found out why. And I found out why through the local newspaper down in Rolla, who did an investigative report.
Well, let's go back a little bit. So the plea agreement. Tell me all about the plea agreement and what they. So not only did they want you to give over the property,
Yes.
you wound up having to do some time.
Oh, that's the thing too. Because I went in for a meeting with Gil Cison, and he's the one that keeps working with their prosecuting attorney, and they're trying to work out a deal. I didn't want to go to trial. None of it goes to trial. I studied it. Anyone that goes to trial in a federal case, there's a 98% success rate for federal prosecutions. Right. You just don't win. And if you do win, they come right back at you and just hammer you with. They just make your life miserable. They're sore losers.
Yeah. You know? Anybody see what they're doing to Donald Trump? They can do it to anybody and worse.
But so the plea deal, they said they'd give me the money back that they took, and that I'd have to sign the property over, and I had to do some prison time. They're like, not much, just enough to say you did.
Okay. How about they do it and see if it's not much?
I know. I was like, really? I got to go to prison too? Because that just seems so like
the knife in the back. I mean, they've already
yeah. I've got gigs to play. I got to
rebuild my life now.
I got kids to take care of, and I got to get to work. I got to do something. And at that point, okay, so they offered me like 24 months. And Gil Cison said he could probably, figure out a good place. Like we would have some sort of leeway where I would go or whatever. There's apparently a big difference in prisons. I didn't know
There's a huge difference from what I'm understanding.
Right. Yeah. So he's like, well, they offered 24 months. He's like, I'm going to come back and ask for 36. I'm like, wait, you're going the wrong way on this. But Gil, he's got a PhD in law. He's a law professor. He found this little loophole thing that if I took 36 months that he could put me in Yankton Federal Prison in Yankton, South Dakota. And they have a program there that if you have more than 30 months on a sentence, you're eligible for this thing called RDAP, which you get in right away. You do it for 9.5 months, and it knocks a big chunk off of your sentence. So I took the 36-month plea, and they didn't give me all my money back. I went to get the 180 back, and they're like, I got pulled out in the hallway, and it's Scott Rosenblum and Gil Cison. They're like, okay, the judge said he'll do this deal, but he's going to keep $50,000 as a fine, so you get 130 back. And I'm like, God dang it, really? Right. Yeah. So we do the deal, and I go to Yankton Federal Prison. By day 3, I'm in this program, and because right when I got there, I hit the ground running. I was approaching everybody, and apparently I've never been to prison, but, the thing is, those guys are the enemies. You don't talk to them. And I'm shaking hands and, hey, what's up?
Yeah, right.
And I get in the program right away. 9.5 months later, I graduate the program. 2 days later, I'm out. I'm back to St. Louis, and they put me in a halfway house for 6 months. But I was really only there for about 4 months, and then, I was at my house. And during that 6 months, quick side story, that I was in the halfway house, I came out and I was a real popular outlaw musician. And in that, while I was at the halfway house, one of the gigs I played was opening for Sammy Hagar at Riverport Amphitheater.
Right.
And I got special permission from the halfway house to stay. I'm like,
I bet you did.
I'm like, can I stay and party with the band afterwards, or do I have to be in by 10 o'clock like I usually, even though my set was before his and I was done and I'm like, I want to see the Sammy show. And Michael Anthony, the bass player, he hung out tough. It was hard to get around Sammy. We talked to Sammy a little bit. We asked him to sit in, but he's like, I don't want to blow my grand entrance, which I get it. He's Sammy Hagar,
he's right.
John. So yeah, I had to do a little bit of prison time, lost the property, lost all my equity, saved my credit score, but I had to go to Yankton, South Dakota for 9.5 months. And I'll tell you, it's cold up there.
I bet.
It's Sturgis is on the other side of the state, but it was, but it turned out to be one of the nicest prisons in the prison system. Some of the guys that were in there been in places going, man, this is like it was a former college campus. There was no walls or fences, and to get from one side of the campus to the other, you're walking across public streets, and you're like in military uniforms. You don't even look like prisoners. And the kids would ride by on bikes, and women pushing babies in carriages, as you're walking by. That was a little different. You could just walk out at any time, but they count you 4 times a day, and if you're not where you're supposed to be, you're marked as escaped. It was a federal prison camp, which there's a prison camp, there's low security, medium security, then what you see on TV, the maximum security, and then super max.
Sure.
So this was pretty mellow. Like if you got caught fighting there, you would be instantly moved to low security.
Right.
But I learned a lot, and I was in there with some pretty heavy hitters, like the guy that invented it was the Japanese engineer that created the Chevy Volt. They charged him with selling trade secrets to the Chinese.
Oh, man.
He swears he didn't do it. Such a mellow guy. I'm hanging out in the library with that, and also the director of Hunt for Red October and Die Hard. I forgot what his name was. He was in there because he did what Martha Stewart did. He lied to some federal probate.
Okay.
He got a 12-month sentence. I got out before he did. He was in there the same time I was. And in a lot of Ponzi scheme, nonviolent crime. So there's Ponzi scheme guys in there, chemists that were caught making methamphetamine and stuff like that. So I was getting somewhat of an education. I hung out in the library a lot. This prison had an amazing music department, and they instantly put me to work in there.
Oh, I bet.
So I was taking care of guitars, PA systems. I was teaching lessons. I put together 4 different bands while I was in there, and I was making the most of my time. But here I get out of prison, and I'm still trying to figure out what was the motive. What was the motive? So the local newspaper caught wind that down there on this property, there's this huge construction project going on, a multi-million-dollar construction project going on this property. And they're like, why aren't we getting any press releases on this? So they sent one of their investigative reporters. He got in a canoe and paddled up the creek to the property because all the gates were locked. They didn't want anyone going in. And he went around and took pictures, big major construction. So they started investigating this. Also, let's back up a little bit. The property, when the property got confiscated and I signed it over, they made a public statement saying, hey, we're going to auction this property off. And I think what happens is they put a little ad in the paper, and usually hardly anyone sees it because they have to. Mm-hmm. Our crowd was a pretty smart bunch and above average intelligence, and some of these people had money. So a number of fans caught wind of it and bid in the auction, and one of them got an email saying you won the auction. Wow. And it was for like 800 or 900,000, and they were ready to pay it. And then and they said like a half hour later they got another email saying, oh yeah, the reserve wasn't met, we're going to do another auction. And they'd announce another auction, except they'd announce it like a little bit more obscurely. But at that point, these people that wanted to buy it, fans of mine, started really studying where they're going to announce it. And then they do a little thing on a website. And another auction happened. And in that one, it was a business in Salem, Missouri that won it. And this is all documented by the Rolla Daily News or whatever the newspaper was. Phelps County Focus, that's what it was. And it's all in there. And they went to great, because it was good read at the time. And because the whole auction was a scam. This guy won it in Salem, and then same thing. Oh, the reserve wasn't met. And then the next day, apparently what they did is they took a little cardboard sign and stuck it on the gate saying auction tomorrow. So where nobody would see it, and then the federal government bids in the state auction and gets it for, it's said in there,
$640,000.
Yeah, if we would have had the place appraised, it would have been twice that, easily. Because just from the capitalization rate on it, you were grossing $1.7 million a year,
right.
and we did a $200,000 to $300,000 in expansion and everything. So that was weird. And then it was radio silence, and then they hear about this construction. Well, they keep investigating, and then they find out that this is going to be Missouri's new state park, the J. Nixon State Park. And they're like, why is it named after Jay? And why is this and why is that? And it turns out that Jay Nixon used to go to this camp when it was a youth camp. And it gets better. His mother was supposedly one of the camp hosts, or worked there as one of the counselors or whatever. Right? And so I imagine he would be there because there was like 3 1-month sessions, and I read, because I owned the place, and I talked to people that used to go there when it was a youth camp, because they would come visit. On it. Sure, and they're like, oh, some of us would stay all season long because our parents were counselors here. So I imagine Jay might have had his first kiss there, or, a lot of, and he did a lot of summers there. So apparently, when he was still a prosecuting attorney before he became governor, maybe it was put in motion, hey, let's try taking this place from this guy. Let's just take it.
I don't doubt it.
Which I look back, a 4-year investigation, they have to have spent paying those undercovers to come in, and those guys would buy tickets. They'd be there all weekend long.
Sure.
They'd rent an RV.
Sure.
They had to have spent $100,000 to $200,000 just in investigating. Now, when they went into it, they probably thought within a week or two they'd have so much evidence on me because I'm the kingpin. I'm moving cocaine. I'm moving this.
Yeah.
And out
Found
of all
zero.
the police reports, the only thing that was in there about me having drugs is one of the guys thought that he saw me smoking a joint from a distance.
Woo.
And
That sounds horrible.
and I probably was, but does that mean that I'm this horrible person that's just, and I'm paying a lot of money in tax dollars through this thing.
Sure.
The manager at Walmart in Salem said every event that their gross revenue would be 20 to 30,000 higher each one. They'd look for it. They'd overstock stuff, camping gear and stuff. So
cool.
we were definitely benefiting the community. I was a member of 2 Chamber of Commerces, and I was the guy that would show up every month, and I'd help the president. They asked me to be president of the little one, but I was too busy. It's like, look, I'll attend the meetings, and I'll donate money, and I'll help with community stuff.
And let's be honest. I mean, you did a pretty good job as a businessman, but I mean, you're a bass player. We don't want to do all this other stuff, right?
Just want to sing and play. I want to sing.
Yeah.
I want to play music because that's the ultimate joy for me. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still be trying to play music out in the woods.
Right.
For some reason, when I play music out in the woods, thousands of people show up, or a lot of them do. I was just in Arkansas last week down at Birds Adventure Center, an 800-acre facility on the Mulberry River. We've been down there for 14 years doing events, and that was our 29th event. What happened is when Schwag stopped in 2010 at the end, what happened really surprised me. I thought I was going to be a hot potato and no one would want to hire me because, I'm this outlaw musician. They're going to take my property too. Instead, my phone was ringing a lot, and it was a lot of people saying, hey, I own some land. Why don't you come out here and play? And I'm like, well, are you a commercial campground? He's like, no, I got a 3-acre field. I'm like, well, that isn't going to do me any good.
Yeah, right.
And then someone would call, I got a 20-acre campground, but we have neighbors. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. It's not big enough. And then someone would call, I got 100 acres, but I don't have any money. I'm like, I don't got any money either. So but then I got a call from Birds Adventure Center, and they were like, hey, we've got 800 acres, a stage. We also have a shower house. We have this, and we have money. We'll send you money. And when they made that call to me, I was in California doing some gigs, and like right when I got back from California that weekend, I had our production manager pick me up at the airport at like 7 a.m, and we drove straight to Arkansas and had a meeting with this Birds Adventure Center place, and we signed a deal. And Schwag Stocks never missed a beat. We called it Bird Fest because it's Birds Adventure Center.
Right.
It's the same thing, just called Bird Fest.
Sure.
They were like, we could still call it Schwag Stock. I'm like, that's a hot potato name. I mean, we're pretty bold just keeping doing this thing. But we moved the operation down there, and we did 3 of them that first summer, and they were all successful. It was less people because it was a new venue.
Sure, of course.
But we averaged between 1,000 and 2,000 people down there twice a year. And here it is 14 years later. And down there, the local police department and sheriff's department are the security.
So, there's a lot of things, folks, if you're listening to this, that just, I hope that it boggles your mind a little bit. Look, I get it that maybe you listeners are not into maybe some of the same things that folks that go to a Schwag stock are into, maybe you are, and maybe you aren't. Doesn't matter. This was things that were going on private property. People were having a good time. They weren't starting fights. They're not causing problems. They're not going out and robbing your neighborhoods. They're just folks want to get together. I mean, marijuana is legal now in the state of Missouri in a lot of places. They're probably smoking a little weed at the time. Maybe doing a little something else, whatever. To me, hey, if you can kill a baby inside your body before it's born and that's your choice, then I'm pretty sure it's all right for somebody to put a substance inside their body that is their choice. So we can have a whole show about drugs and alcohol and all that good stuff if you want to sometime, listeners, and maybe we will just for the fun of it. But please do not look at what's happening here and what, because I believe a lot of people would say, well, you were doing these illegal things, you probably got what you deserve. Well, think about that for if you're thinking that way, think about that for just a little minute. What would you like to do on your property in your private time, even if you've invited people in and made some money? So what? Is it really the right thing for the government to be able to come down and for 4 years surveil you, watch you, take all sorts of pictures and who knows what else? Everybody that was there lying to everybody you're talking to, because that's what undercover they have to do. Is it? And then to come around, take this man's property under this obscure charge. And don't think this is the only time this happens. How many of you have been paying attention? If you listen, folks just driving across various states get pulled over. Maybe they were speeding a little bit or across the white line or the yellow line or something, got pulled over. Law enforcement finds out they've got tens of thousands of dollars of cash in their car, and they just seize it for no reason. Or how about, let's even go a little bit farther, that somebody has a firearm shop. The cops say they're doing something wrong with those firearms, and instead of just keeping the ones that are the issue at hand, they steal all of them, and they never give them back. So, and if you can go to court. They gave you that option, didn't they? What do you think that charge could have been had you went ahead and not take any plea deal and go to court?
Well, we talked about that quite a bit, and Gil and Scott, the attorneys, they laid it out. They're like, you should take the plea deal, because if you don't and you lose, which you most likely will because they stack the evidence against you, they have an unlimited budget and they'll fudge things, whatever, to win. But I would have gotten an 8-year prison sentence. So instead of this 36 months that could have been less than a year if I did it right, then I would have done 8 years. Now, one guy I was in prison with, he did a crime, and he was blatantly guilty, but he was real cocky, and he did not take his 3-year plea deal, and he spent $200,000, and he thought he could beat his charge, and he thought he could beat the federal government.
He didn't do it.
He lost, and he got 8 years, and this was a guy that I friended in prison, and this was a smart guy. While he was there, at this prison we went to, they also had a college. It was a former college campus, but they'd offer you college classes if you went. He earned a master's degree while in there.
Sitting in there, yeah, right?
Yeah, they offered me that too. I already have an Associate of Arts degree, and I went and applied, and they laughed at me. They're like, well, you already got a degree, and you're not going to be here long enough to get any other sort of degree. I'm like, well, can I take a class for fun? And they're like, no.
So you went through this RTAP, you called it?
RDAP, RDAP, Residential Drug Abuse Program, which was kind of like a counseling thing. You all lived in the same dorm, and it was almost like therapy, and it was really designed for people that, these guys that got addicted to methamphetamine, and they were cooking it, and then they wanted to straighten their lives up, and they wanted to knock some time off of their sentence. If you made it through this program, which was like a college program, you could get some time off. So I was eligible for that program, but it was a hard program. There was some guys that would get halfway through it and quit, even though it meant they'd get a year or two off their sentence. Right. And a lot of those guys, I learned later, when you're charged with a federal crime, most of the time, if you're found guilty, you get a 5, 10, 15, 20-year sentence. So when I showed up with 36 months, one of the nicknames they gave me was Short Timer. It's like, I don't even want to get to know you. I'm going to start liking you. You're going to leave.
Right.
And I got along with everybody there.
It sounds fascinating. I almost wonder how much, it sounds like your attorneys really, in the long run, did a pretty good job, because I think we can all agree that once a Fed has you, they've got you. And, they're going to stick around for 3 years, 4 years to find out if you're doing something wrong, right? Maybe at the first year, they're like, well, we didn't actually see him sell any drugs, and I don't see a big stash of drugs. Maybe we need to wait just a little bit longer. Year number 2, still haven't seen him sell any drugs. How about we just be this dirt? Yeah, I know there's no FCC, but I'll still be clean. How about we just go try him one more time? I get a little aggravated. So, Nathan, Jimmy Tebeau. If you guys haven't met, I didn't know if you'd met yet.
I have not.
Very good. You talked to him. You first got me turned on to the fact that he was even here.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got in touch with you. And you're in studio. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I've been listening, and I wanted to meet you because I've kind of like him. I've read about what happened to you and what they did. I've heard about it for years and always thought, man, that is messed up. I'm proud to say I've never been to Echo Bluff State Park. And I won't go. Echo Bluff.
And that's what it is now. I don't know if we stated that. Yeah. They pulled the J. Nixon name and called it Echo Bluff State Park.
One of the buildings there is J. Nixon building.
It is, and he was going to have a grand suite in the main room or something like that. And the reason they didn't name it to him is because he didn't win the election. The next guy came in, stripped his name off it, and then found out that he bought like 6 or 7 other large properties for other state parks. And then there was even a little bit of a controversy of the money that they used to put into Camp Zoe.
Sure is.
There was $62 million.
It was money that they got. They won from Doe Run. I believe it was Doe Run mining operation that they won in a lawsuit. They were supposed to use those monies to fix up all of that area because, I mean, if you fly over that area, it looks like a minefield. I mean, it looks like disaster, but they were supposed to fix all of that area up, turn it back into something decent, environmentally wise, because that's why they sued them, right? Environmental damage. But what did those dirty individuals do? Not only did they steal your property and bought it from the feds, they also bought a huge chunk of land down in southern Missouri as well, right on the Arkansas border. I don't know how many acres that is, but it's nothing but woods. And they bought that saying, well, we're going to buy that and preserve it in lieu of fixing the territory that's been tore up. So you're 100% right. The money they got was dirty, in my opinion. They used it to do dirty things, and then they're going to stand up and say what great things they've done for the environment. So this whole thing, and just like Nathan, I've been watching this, and it angers me greatly that we have the government that is doing to us, and I mean literally doing to us what they're doing this day and age, and there isn't enough people that are enraged about it to stand up. I don't know. I'll throw something out real quick, and I'm going to open up the mic up to Nathan here real quick. Who can guess who carried this asset forfeiture bill in the United States Senate in 1984, 1985?
You talking about the equitable sharing?
Yep.
Probably somebody that we all know because you're saying it like that. So I really don't know. I don't know who brought it in.
Joseph Robinette Biden.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, he was also behind this 21 U.S.C. 856 federal mandate, which was designed to, get crack houses out of inner city places. And at the time, there was an XTC problem at raves. That's why it was created.
I remember.
And they twisted it to steal my property.
Well,
But they didn't care. Well, go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm not opposed to getting rid of crack houses.
Yeah.
If it's a legitimate crack house.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing that for your listeners out here that may be clutching their pearls on this conversation a bit. Every concert I have ever been to, every single concert, including at Ozark Amphitheater before marijuana was legalized. I was at a Primus concert there 2 or 3 years ago. And they had the Camden County Sheriff running security, just like you're saying. Mm-hmm. And there was a puff of smoke. You could stand back in the back and just see weed smoke, and you could smell it and everything else. So they could, if they really cared, if it was really a principle that they were about, they could bust every one of these concert venues across the entire United States. They singled him out because it wasn't about the venue; it was about the land.
That's exactly right.
And they don't care about the amphitheater. What are they going to do with that? It's not valuable as an amphitheater to them.
Well, not just that. The pushback would be unrelenting, especially in Camden County.
Sure. I mean, Verizon Amphitheater used to be sandstone. I used to go up there to Rockfest back whenever Johnny Dare would put it on. There was people selling cocaine. There was people selling all kinds of crap up there. I'm not saying I bought any, but it was going on.
Sure.
And the police were the security there. So they turn their head. Most local departments will turn their head on all that stuff because it's a money making. When it comes down to it, all these little places are making money for the communities they're in, and those communities wouldn't stand for it. These guys were out in the woods, out away from all these other places, and so they were an easy target. And I'm like you. and I don't care about being clean. It pissed me off, and it has ever since I read about it. And that's why when I found out he was here and you were doing what you were doing with the asset forfeiture, I was like, oh, hey, you guys need to talk.
Yeah.
Because we need to get you two together, because this is it's a principle that is as un-American as anything I can think of.
So, right. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this particular issue, because it was a federal issue. There is, and Nathan, you know probably the statutes and laws about it more than I do. I at least know the gist of it. In the state of Missouri, if you have that same sort of situation, and let's say you were in Dent County, is that right? No, Shannon County.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. You're in Shannon County, and I know an individual that was at the Rolla Police Department that wound up being some of the cops that raided your place. Why would they bring somebody all the way from Rolla? Because they needed the manpower and they could share in the cash.
There's
That's what it is.
The
Equitable sharing.
Equitable
That's exactly.
sharing.
So that's what we're ending here in Camden County is federal equitable sharing, just so you know that. And what they did to you is part of the reason why we're doing it. I mean, they've done it to thousands of people all across the country. So this is why we want to do this sort of thing. And folks, there is a Missouri asset forfeiture, and so these crack houses or what have you, if law enforcement raids a crack house, and sure that's what it is, and they find a bunch of cash, and maybe the owner of that property and the dealer, by the way, is also a dealer, not just happens to own the property, that really has no control over what other people want to do, right? So if you are the dealer and you own that property, and the law enforcement can come in, they can seize the cash, all the property, and if you're convicted, and there's the thingy, you have to be convicted in the state of Missouri before it can be taken and seized and sold, then they give the proceeds to where, Nathan? The school system.
They give it to the school system. And the reason...
Why? Yes, go.
Yes, exactly.
Go.
The reason why this was done is because, well, you've got like Macks Creek out here.
Yep.
You know, they made a law, and maybe you know this or not, but it's called Macks Creek Law, about how cities cannot get any more than a certain percentage of their budget from traffic revenue, from tickets, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same intent was behind the Missouri, it's CAFA, C-A-F-A law, Civil Asset Forfeiture Act. They were seeing little departments all around the state and big departments who would target people who, okay, well, we pulled this guy over and he's got $10,000 in cash and he says it's for this, but he doesn't have any proof. Like, let's say I got $10,000 in cash because I can save my money, you know, and I like cash. It is American currency, good for all debts, right?
Sure.
So what is it to you if I have $10,000 in cash?
Exactly.
Now,
right?
if it's stuffed in my gas tank, I put it there because I didn't want to get robbed while I was stopped at Walmart. You know, I don't know.
Right.
But at the same time, the $10,000 in cash itself should not be considered drug money. But that's what they were doing. They were saying, "Oh, this is drug money, so we're going to take it and we're going to confiscate it, and it's going to go to our department." So the state of Missouri. You know, you could say what you want about our state legislator, but one of the things that they did that was actually good is they made a specific statute that said you cannot do this. They did it after the federal asset forfeiture. You cannot do this. Anything seized cannot be used to enrich the department that seizes it.
Right.
But then the federal government said, well, hey, just give it to us.
We got a way around that.
It's money laundering.
It is money. Yep.
It's money laundering. If a drug dealer goes to somewhere, some business, and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you $100,000. You keep 20, give me back 80, and write me a check so it looks legitimate."
Yeah,
that's called money laundering.
that's right.
And that's what we're doing with the federal government.
That's right.
And what people don't realize is the state statutes say, as you said, you have to be convicted of a felony directly related to
That seizure.
the seizure. The federal statute doesn't say that.
No, that's
It
right.
can be an administrative seizure. They don't even have to charge you with anything. You don't have to ever see court, and it specifically says that.
They can even charge the property.
Yeah.
So if they seize a house or real estate and nobody wants to claim it, they charge against the property itself. And talking to our good buddy Dave Moppin, he says what a lot of times happens is these guys, you know, that'll have this cash or property, they don't want to deal with the feds or the cops at all, and then they just won't claim it. It ain't mine. And then they take it anyway.
Well, and there's another way that they use the asset forfeiture. So in order for them to do the sharing where they bring in the feds and it's a joint investigation and they get to do all that, they can do it that way. The other way they can do it is, let's say they confiscate a bunch of guns from somebody in some other crime, like it's domestic violence or whatever. They arrest somebody for one thing, they take his guns, they hold on to him. after a certain amount of time, they can actually, I forget the exact word, but essentially they go to the federal government and relinquish it to them. Like they don't even have to be a part of the initial raid. It doesn't have to be federal, nothing. And it's in the statute. I'd have to pull it up, but it's a separate way of doing it. They essentially say, hey, we got these guns. We're going to give them to you. You give them back to us.
Right.
And they can do that without any of the charges. They don't have to have anything. It's actually less paperwork to do that, because then it's like, oh, it's already in our possession. You're not even part of the investigation. We're just, it's a certain term for their sharing. I love how they call it sharing. It sounds so friendly, right? Sharing. But I'm excited because I think Camden County leads the way in a lot of ways, now at least. And I think, man, if we could just get some more grassroots people across the state to put a roadblock in here, because the beautiful part about it is, as the county executive, they can't do that without you signing off on it.
That's right.
You have to sign it.
That's right.
And that's your name, and they don't have any right to your name on that paper. That's your decision.
That's right.
And, if we get some other commissions involved and we can kind of get a block going, we can push back on it. And I know our sheriff, I don't know, did you happen to see any of those meetings?
I watched him. Yeah, you've been sending me videos. I watch him.
Yeah. He wasn't happy. He told me to shut my mouth. All I did was raise my hand. But he's nothing makes him madder than not being able to enrich themselves. And my thing to say is, well, you don't want the money going to the schools?
Well, also, since we'll bring that up, and he had mentioned that people are going to be losing their jobs, and you don't care. I'm pretty confident that if the Lake Area Narcotics Enforcement Group goes away, those officers are still going to have a job. I'm pretty sure, seeing how they're highway patrol, I think, and some sheriff's deputies, I'm pretty sure they're going to continue a job. I'm just pretty sure of that.
I think they've lost sight of what it was originally for. Like if they pull somebody over that has 2 kilos of cocaine and a duffel bag full of money, take it all over, but not being like, well, they just have money. Let's say it's drug money. Let's make them fight. If they take 10 grand and make them pay 4,000 in legal fees and fight to get it back for 2 years, and maybe they do, is it worth the fight?
Right, exactly.
That's the abuse of it. The original concept, I think I agree with, like if there is a crack house, shut it down, take the house from the owner. He keeps renting to crack dealers,
Sure.
That's a real clear cut thing. But when it's a far reach where they just pull someone over with money, or they want to take a guy's property because they want it to be a new state park and whatever.
Yeah. And in your case, again, if we were going to say, well, yeah, we agree with that rule, then why not? Go ahead and use it. You would then presume that in your house or in one of your pieces of property or something, they would have found some sort of a drug stash or some sort of a big cash stash, because the weekend just ended, right?
It just ended.
You didn't have time to launder all your cash.
Everything was already in the bank. We already did it clean.
See, exactly. It was all clean. They didn't, because there wasn't any illegal cash going on there, right?
They found no drugs. They found nothing. They just made some low-level buys over 4 years, and it was all less than $4,000 worth of just minor stuff.
Which doesn't even go anywhere close to what the reality of what we're talking about in the law, and why we would maybe support some of what they do. But here's the problem. This is almost why I can't support any of it, because it's rife for abuse. So we can't have any of it, truly.
Sure.
If you're going to have this, it needs to be fixed. I've got some of the law here. I'm not going to get into it because, look, us talking about what the law is doesn't matter much. We're not going to be able to change it. And I can assure you there isn't a single Missouri representative in Washington, D.C., whether it's Senator Hawley, Senator Schmidt, Mark Alford, newly elected Bob Onder, they're not going to touch this. They're not going to stop it, and they're not going to do anything about it. So it is up to, again, local level elected individuals that are supposed to interpose on behalf of their citizens with the government at every level to protect their rights to the very best that we can do. And that's why I'm doing this in Camden County. And I hope that we can find some other commissioners across the state. You don't have to do a whole lot. Just don't sign those agreements. Do not get into bed with the federal government in any way. Yeah, Nathan.
There's another example for the listeners out there here in Camden County. I want to say it was early 2000s. If you look in federal court, just type in White versus Camden County. And it was a guy who he had an RV, and it had, I think, either he had temp tags on it or didn't have the temp tags because he had just bought it. and he was traveling with it, and he was coming through Camden County, and it was the Camdenton City Police as well as the sheriff. But it kind of gives you, anyways, he got pulled over, and I think he had an ounce or 2 ounces of pot and like $30,000 in cash and this RV. Well, they took the cash, they took the RV, obviously they took the pot, and then they took him to court and said that, and he said, well, I just bought this RV. I took a bunch of money out because I was going to look at all these different RVs.
Got to have cash on hand. You can deal better.
Got to have cash on hand. So I took this money with me. I bought the RV I wanted. This is the money that was left over. And they said, well, can you prove it? Immediately after they arrested him, they filed for this asset forfeiture. Yeah. And what I was going to say a second ago is that it kind of shows behind the scenes, because in the court case, they get all the documents out and it shows like, man, they pulled him over. As soon as they got in there, they filed that paperwork. And then the sheriff, they wanted a part of it. So everybody got their little hands on it. And the guy fought it in federal court and he lost. And, and that's the thing about it that people don't realize. Once they take this from you, like you said, you spent $30,000 on defense. If you were trying to sue the government and get
your
it
property
back, you'd have spent $200,000-$400,000 easy,
and still probably not gotten the property back.
Probably not got it back. And this guy spent a lot of money, I'm sure, because it was several years. It went all the way to the appeals court, and
that's not cheap, is it?
No, it's not. And
sorry, dude.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, what people don't realize in a lot of these cases, sometimes when you lose, it's because of a technicality. It's because of some obscure statute, some obscure law, some obscure immunity that you didn't know they had. I mean, goddamn, the government's got every immunity. There's like 15. You think qualified immunity is bad? Let's talk about absolute and legislative and sovereign and all the other immunities that they want to argue they have.
It's crazy.
So that's the thing, and it could happen to any of you. If you have cash on you, let's say you're in, it may not happen in Camden County because you're well known or whatever, but you get out in some BFE and get pulled over and you got $15,000 in cash, and they decide they're going to take it. Are you going to spend 50 to get 15 back, or are you going to walk away?
Exactly right.
Most people walk away, it's a way that they extort you. And you were talking about legal marijuana earlier. Look at what they're doing out in Kansas, stopping people going out to because they're.
That's right.
It's a cash business because FDIC banks or whatever won't let you deposit marijuana money, so they're driving through Kansas with. Well, that's a lot of money. Sure. A couple $100,000, $1 million in cash.
Who knows? Yeah.
And Kansas is just waiting for them to come through, pulling them over. Oh, we're going to take that money. That's evidence.
That's what they do.
That's drug money, even though it's legal in Missouri.
That's right.
What I don't get is like these people that are pushing so hard for it, the sheriffs or whatever, they're not personally financially gaining from it. From what I can see, it's not like, ooh, if I push this through, I get an extra $5,000 in my pocket. It goes to their department, which is probably pretty well financed to begin with. And what's the driving greed? Like, ooh, we need another AR-15.
Oh, my friend.
Is that an ego thing?
The psychedelics of spending somebody else's money is euphoric, my friend.
It
Come
must
on
be.
now.
It must
and
be.
not only that, you have somebody else's money that you can go spend and buy these toys and different guns and gators and little trinkets for investigations and whatever.
I don't think, to be honest,
and who knows? They're not personally.
I was going to say,
I guarantee it.
Hey, they pull out a duffel bag that's got $100,000 in it, and they turn in 80. I'm sure that's happened. And whenever they confiscate somebody's guns, where do those go?
Where do they go?
Kind of like you were saying earlier, that they had an auction, and they announced they were having an auction, and you come to find out the gun sold for $50. I've seen it with cars here.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple cars go to some auction places around here and end up selling pretty cheap.
Sure.
It
happens.
There is ways to enrich yourselves, and I don't. I used to be one that was maybe a little naive and thought, man, these guys are all doing it for honorable reasons. But I've seen the dishonorable. I've seen the side of it, and I don't. If there's potential for abuse, there's somebody doing it.
Somebody will abuse it. Folks, you are listening to Radio Free Missouri on DAM Radio at Lake Ozark Real State-of-the-Art Studios. If you want to call in and join in this conversation, it's 573-746-8020. I got the man right here. Went through all of this. If you have any questions, you want to find out something that we haven't thought about, something you just got to know, please, you're welcome to call in, 573-746-8020, Radio Free Missouri. We're going to continue on here. So All right, so we know that how they did this, and we know what we went through. Is there anything about the because what the next I want to get into is what happened after, and what after you got out, and how life is and whatnot. But is there anything within that raid or within all that legal process that you wanna bring out yet?
Well, it was an eye-opening experience, and I learned a lot about law and federal procedures and stuff like that because I was studying it. I thought there's got to be a way I can beat this. They just don't have. I looked at all the evidence; it was all minimal, and they exploited every little thing they could to paint me as this Charles Manson guy. That's this crazy drug dealer guy. That's a menace to society.
Reefer madness.
Yeah, and at one point I got presented an award for like Entrepreneur of the Year for taking this failed church camp and then grossing $1 million in a year and enriching the community. So I'm being awarded and then I'm being punished at the same time. So
I think you did. I think you got too successful and they wanted that property to begin with.
And
really.
I don't know why they didn't buy it when it was for sale. That'd
have been nice, wouldn't it?
I mean, they could have, and that place was for sale for a little while, and so afterwards, finding out about the state park and all that, and the motivations, and then. Then it wasn't called the J. Nixon State Park. It was called the Echo Bluff State Park, which that was about the centerpiece of the property was this bluff that you could yell at and it would echo back at you.
Cool, yeah.
And they kept some of the names of the sections in there, like the state park. Some of the names are related to names of Grateful Dead songs, which I don't think they realized, and maybe they thought those sections were already named
original or something. Good, I love it.
That was cool. And now, I actually did a gig out there, after.
You did not.
Yeah, check this. This is a good story. After I got out of prison, they had built it out and it was open. So I wanted to go out there and check it out. And I was with a friend and we were visiting my dad in Rolla at the time. And I'm like, hey, let's go down there and drive through it. And he's like, no way. Are you crazy? I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that they could do is kick me out, right. And then that'd be a great social media post.
Right.
I'm a marketing guy, whatever.
You're kicked out again.
Yeah. So that would have been funny. I wanted to see the place. So we went down there and then we went behind the lodge and onto the main beach right in front of Echo Bluff. And I'm like, okay, quick, before they kick us out, let's record a song. I bust out an acoustic guitar and I sing a tune. And I'm taking little video clips and that, and we record the song, and I get some clips while driving around. I figure I'm going to get a great video out of this, which I did. I released the song and with some clips, and it got like 60,000 views or whatever. So it was great social media content. But then we went through the lodge, and no one was really recognizing me because it was different people, and so we're just walking around checking out stuff. No one's saying anything to us. So then I'm like, well, let's go up to the administration building. Which was where my old house was. And that's what I told my buddy who was driving at the time. And so we went up there and there's the admin building. I'm like, pull in, let's go in. He's like, I'm not going in there. You crazy. and I walk in and they're like, Jimmy, what's up? And it was one of the women who used to work for me there, who's now working for the state park.
Wow, yeah.
And they're like, oh, do you want to meet the new director? A young guy who had just taken over. And he brought me to his office. Hey, what's going on? What can we do for you? Blah, blah, blah. And they're giving me a warm welcome. And I'm like, can I have the place back? And we're all laughing.
Right.
And I'm like, man, you guys built a stage. Can I play on it? And they're like, yeah. And so I booked a date and I went and did a solo acoustic show. I played like 3 hours in a row. I videotaped it. We had about 400 people show up.
Wow.
And there was probably about 40 or 50 police officers and state park rangers, and they were all over because I think they thought there was going to be 2,000 people show up and crazy drug use and nudity. I don't know what they thought.
Yeah, right.
And throughout the event, I could see some of them leaving, but by the end, there was still like 20 hanging around. And I do the whole show. There's 400 people there. I got a video of it too. And but at the very end, I'm packing out my gear and the show's over. A lot of people are leaving, and like 4 police officers start approaching me. I'm like, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah, right.
And they come up and they're like, Jimmy, we just want to meet you. And would it be cool if we got a selfie with you?
Is that
I'm like,
right?
oh,
Wow.
yeah. And we're all like laughing. And then the park rangers are helping me load the equipment out. You know,
Very
and they're like,
cool.
you can play here anytime. The hard thing or the tough thing is that gig doesn't pay any money. So so I put like $400 into advertising, rented a truck, and by the end I put $1,200 into going to play a gig so I didn't want to gift that to them every year, to draw a big crowd out there. I'm like, at least pay me some money. And then I'm like, I don't know if I can draw a crowd like that. Instead, I'm like, I just need to try finding another place. But through the whole thing, I was like, why did it have to go down this way? And that's when I learned more about the abuse of asset forfeiture, and then this obscure law, 21 U.S.C. 856, and how many other obscure laws are there, and how are they deep,
Thousands.
And sure, for the most part, the law works the way it's supposed to. If somebody murders somebody, they go to jail. It's clear-cut. It's black and white. But there's a lot of gray area that's happening where there is abuse, and it's good that there's like commissions set up, and there's oversight, and there's checks and balances, I think, which is what we're talking about here. And it frustrates the people that want to abuse it. And we're saying, hey, don't do that. And they just have this driving thing that I want to do it. I want to abuse this law because it's going to make me feel better or something.
Yeah, something.
I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of back end where they do get a little kickback and a little financial gain. What does that mean? They buy another car or something, but they're going to make someone's life miserable so they could have another car? I don't know.
Some of it's the headlines and the clout. You know what I mean? Some of it's like, I took out this, because like you said, they inflated the value of everything. It's like when I see, they do that on regular traffic stops. Like somebody gets busted with an ounce of pot and they're like, $5,000 worth of marijuana. And I'm like, whoa.
Where's that?
That's a primo, right? But, you talked about laws, and what a lot of people don't realize, the way our law system is set up, there is actually 2 distinct categories of law. And I wish that the average person would get those differences. The 2 categories. Now, I am not a Latin speaker. I am from Missouri, so I'm going to try it here. But I think malum in se and malum prohibitum, I believe is how it's said. One means evil inside. That's malum in se. That is murder, rape, theft, things.
Crimes against a human being.
Yes, things that reflect a
Evil nature.
rottenness inside someone. And then there are laws that are laws because we say that they're
You can't
law.
do it.
Yeah, they're the administrative state.
Yes.
It's like when somebody's speeding or whatever, and they haven't hurt anybody, but you get people on lake area happenings. One of the admins asked me to do a shout out, which is a wonderful local group, by the way, and the admins run it very well. But you're all of a sudden speeding. And, you get 500 people on there that are just like, oh, my God, you need to slow down and whatever, They treat you like you're a drug dealer.
Yeah, right.
They think you're on crack because you're doing 5 over, and they want to tell everybody about it. Yeah. So many people are programmed to just the law, every no matter how stupid the law is, the law is the law. And there's some cops that are like that. Instead of using their discretion and, because when I lived in Los Angeles, marijuana wasn't legal. But if you got caught with marijuana, the cop would just be like, whatever. Like, dump it. I got other things to deal with, son. You gonna dump that out, or do I need to write you a ticket? You know?
Right.
Like
it used to be that way.
Yeah, and it was
everywhere almost.
It used to be that way with beer.
Sure,
growing up, there wasn't nobody ever got an MIP unless you were a jerk.
Right. Right.
And
then you probably deserved it because you were a jerk.
You were a jerk. And I mean, I try, whenever I've been pulled over, I try to be respectful in my
Absolutely.
no matter what.
Sure.
I don't have any reason to be a jerk.
There's no reason, exactly.
I don't have anything against police. What I have against is the administrative state and the enforcement of such, because there has to, if you enforce laws that are bullshit, what does that say?
Well, we as Americans are generally just law-abiding citizens. I mean, we grew up that way. I want to obey the law. I do obey the law. We're getting to a point now, though, you don't even know if you're breaking the law anymore because there are so many of them. And I would bet you that in some capacity, that if you're doing anything in this world, you're probably breaking a law damn near every day in one capacity or another. Who knows what it is? Some obscure federal whatever. Who knows? But a daggum sure can happen. And shout out to Lake Area Happenings. Started proving my post earlier, though. So we no admin. So no, but we have just gone so far beyond in this country from self-governing and wanting to take care of things and people treat each other right to this abusive administrative state that really just is so invasive and tyrannical that it's going to overwhelm us one day soon if we don't get a hand. As a matter of fact, this is going to be maybe a next show next week or a week or something after. There is evidently now going to be in America a meeting with UN officials and a lot of world officials, WHO and others, and part of one of their discussions on their agenda, like we have agenda items, one of their agenda is discussing the framework of one world governance.
Well, sure.
The
march.
It does, which is odd because they've kind of been obscuring it for a long time, but now it's just in your face, and that's what these leftist communists have been doing in our federal government, in the Democrat Party, and some in the Republic. Well, the ones in the Republican Party are just idiots going along with it. The others, the true communists in the Democrat Party, are making it happen. So, but here it comes, folks, and if we don't end it now. If we don't end it today in our lifetimes, our children and grandchildren will live under a one world style of governance, and it will be tyrannical. It'll be nothing like you've ever seen before.
We'll pull him up and let him hold for a second. I got to say one other thing.
Todd, I got you on the phone here. Just hang on for a minute, my friend. Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, while you say that, you talk about at the local level, which is another thing, Jimmy, you may not know. You're coming here at a perfect time, man. We weren't always this cool. The planning and zoning. Planning and zoning is one of those things. It's like, my God, you hear about somebody getting arrested because they had a fence that was too tall and they tried to fight, and then next thing you know, they're building a dozer in their garage for like a year and a half.
Oh yeah, tank.
You know what I mean? Because it's like it drives people nuts.
There's a point in time where enough's enough.
You get sucked up into that bureaucratic red tape BS at the local level, and you can't fight City Hall. They say. I mean, you can, but it's a serious process. It's a long process.
Yes, it is.
But planning and zoning, typically, no, you can't really fight that. So these guys have taken what was like 300 pages, and they're just paring it down to like, okay, basically good neighbor laws. Like, be a good neighbor. We're not worried about all this excess BS and like legalese. The last commission had a lawyer write it, and it was all legalese garbage based on like, you'd think you were looking at a homeowners association manual, Now we have these guys in charge, and they've made a committee of people, of like-minded folks, and it's really getting pared back, and it's going to be really advantageous for guys like you. They're out in the rule because our planning and zoning, without getting too much into it, it's really weird the way it's drawn up. Like, you would think, hey, I'm out here on 300 acres out in the middle of nowhere. I don't have planning and zoning. Oh, no, you do.
You might be.
You might be.
We'll have to check.
Yeah, you have to check
sure
the boundaries because
right.
they got a boundary. It goes by 5 miles as the crow flies,
which is
from the lake.
3.5 miles, and that's a special law if anybody knew anything about that. But in and of itself, special law. We got a caller. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, Ike, thank you. 3 things. Nathan and anyone else that's listening, I would like to hear you guys chime in more on the big show from 2 to 4. That's number 1. Number 2 is that poor kid that ran for his life is going to be crucified and sentenced to multiple years in prison for just trying to run from the man or woman.
I'm not quite sure I would characterize it like that, but go ahead.
It's unreasonable. That kid was not that. It's not his fault that law enforcement officer tried to be a hero. Or
we're not going to go down that road on because anyhow. What else you got for us?
Well, the last thing is this: is that we're being bamboozled. We're being brainwashed, and that thing that's going in over there on the 54 and the highway right there over the lake. That is the biggest boondoggle on the face of Lake the Ozarks. It is ridiculously crazy, and anybody that supports that is dumber than F. That's what I have to say.
All right, Todd. Thank you so very much, my friend. Thank you for listening, as always. And there he goes. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different things going on. We got another caller. All right, fantastic. Hey, Matthew. All right. All right, we're on. Go ahead, caller. You're on Radio Free Missouri, Damn Radio. Go ahead.
Hey, Ike, this is Matt Schultz. How you doing?
Doing real well. Glad you called in. What's going on, Matthew?
Hey, I just wanted to tell you and that I really appreciate what you're doing. I've learned a lot listening to your show and everything. One of the things, though, you're talking about the world, the UN agenda and everything going on there,
yep,
and how this is going to affect our kids and grandkids. Yet I haven't seen anyone address what's going on locally here with our schools and some of the policies that are going on there.
Man, I'll tell you, I love Camden County. I love the people that are in Camden County. And I'm not going to disparage any of the, whatever, but there's issues in our school system. And the bad part is the worst problem in our school system starts at the very top, comes out of Washington, D.C., filters through the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and then is crapped down on these folks down here that, unfortunately, if they want to be able to operate, they're going to have to abide by some of their rules. Now, how much of it are they abiding by because they want to? And how much of everybody there are they abiding by because they have to? So, it might even be a fascinating thing, and Lake of the Ozarks might be able to do it. This just literally just popped into my head that we pull our public system from the public system and make our public system a Camden County public system.
Correct.
And just fund it ourselves and not worry about anybody else's strings.
That would be great.
There's a lot of problems, Matthew. Are you ready to get a group together and charge and lead this effort? I'll stand behind you. I guarantee it. I just can't lead anything right now else.
Right. No, I understand that, and I've been trying to, but the more people I talk to, they've got this fear in their system, in their heads, that has just. We need this because safety of the kids. We need this because safety of the kids. We need this because safety of the kids. And it's, when do these kids get any kind of freedom? When do they get any kind of, they can't go outside for lunch. They can't go, they get no fresh air, nothing. And some of the other policies that they have are just ridiculous.
Never thought of that.
And
well, you get recess. If you're in grade school, you get recess.
You get recess. At high school, you can't go outside.
Yeah, we used to be able to go out to our cars and smoke a cigarette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, for lunch,
or whatever.
They're not getting fresh air. They're not getting sunlight. They're nothing, So everybody nobody wants to say anything bad because, or get involved in anything because they're friends or they're friends of friends or something like that. And they just don't want to make waves.
Yeah.
I would disagree with that. I mean, there was a lot of waves made a couple of years ago. This is Nathan, by the way. There was a lot of waves made here a couple of years ago with the school. But I mean, as far as Ike goes, he's the commissioner. He doesn't really, he does.
Right.
The things that he can do are not really necessarily related to the school. That's a school board issue. Now, me personally, I'm done screwing with that school. I don't care about it no more. Those elections, you just can't get people. Look, what do we get? Like 6 to 10% turnout or whatever it is during school board elections. Yeah. I'm done. Like
it's that.
Yeah. So and no matter how much of an issue there is, you just cannot force people to care. So I'm on to doing what's the old Serenity or the Alcoholics Anonymous prayer? Grant me the strength to change what I can and know what I can or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. I realize that we've got now a good sheriff coming in who's an honorable man, finally. We have the commission, and, we've got a lot of things that we can change locally. Next, I think Osage Beach needs a turnaround. I think they need a good flip, if you will. But as far as the school goes, man, that's a school problem. And
good luck trying to deal with it because, when we had great folks, we've still got some great folks on the board, but, and a lot of times their hands are tied. It's just sad. We got to fight it at the state level to get rid of DESE. That's our first step. We're not going to be able to do anything locally until you get rid of DESE.
Well, and I understand it's a school board issue and everything, but we do talk about, federal and UN and everything. And it's great because everybody needs to know about that. But we also need to know, about what's going on in their schools.
So,
because that is the core. Those are going to be our future representatives. Those are going to be, you know what I mean?
I fully understand, and I agree with you. Stacy Shore has a show on this station. She is huge on school, certainly used to be and still is. Nadine has her show on Fridays. She's into the school systems. Gail Griswold is she's active very, very much up at the Capitol working on school issues. So there are some folks here in the area, and if you want to get a hold of them and just kind of partner with them or say, hey, raise my hand and say, what can I do? And see if they can't plug you into something. You had something to say, Nathan?
Yeah, Gail's going to be on with me tomorrow from 6 o'clock.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, the Fitzwell factor.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
There's the announcement. Have you announced it otherwise?
No.
So this is
I announced it.
You
Yeah,
announced
I did.
it otherwise?
I made that. Remember, I made the video with the intro and put it out there. But anyways, yes, tomorrow Gail will be on with me. We're going to talk lodging tax, school, and general bullshit.
So what time are you on? Now that you broke the seal.
6.
You're on at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
All right. Now you chose Thursday because you knew you couldn't be on like another radio station up against me at the same time, right? It wouldn't.
Well,
work.
right, and I
work for you.
didn't want to be against KB either because he's from was it? Is he 4 to 6?
Yes. Yep,
4 to
4 to
6.
6.
Yeah. So you got JR 2 to 4, him 4 to 6, me 6 to 8.
There you go.
Same with you,
Wednesdays. Yeah, awesome. So that's fantastic. So what is it? That's the Fitzwell factor?
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much, guys.
Yeah.
Hey,
thank you,
take care,
Matthew.
brother.
You take care, my friend.
You guys take care. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for listening. So there you go, guys. You heard it on Damn Radio, on Radio Free Missouri. The Fitzwell Factor, tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. You got to check it out. I'm sure it'll be cool.
It'll be fun.
I'm sure it'll be cool.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
So, all right. And Jimmy, we do let pretty much anybody call in and talk about almost whatever they want
that's
to.
fine.
If they stay on topic, it's beautiful. If they don't, that's okay.
It's
too,
all
brother.
good.
All right, cool. Yeah. So now you're so you got this all taken care of, and we'll circle back here a little bit to kind of where, I mean, if you started this thing kind of below the dam at Lake of the Ozarks, right? And now you're back at Lake of the Ozarks.
That's the thing. I'm now back in business, and I never really missed a beat. The second that they came down, we moved the whole operation to Arkansas, down at Birds Adventure Center. Like I was saying, that we've been there 14 years, 29 events. We were just there this past weekend.
Which also, I want to circle back to this, illustrates to me why it was the piece of property more than anything else.
That was the driving force.
Absolutely.
And these attorneys, they just kept scratching their head. And then when we went in for that one meeting, they're like, they just want the land. They keep coming back to where they want the land. Let's just sign over the land. And I'm like, look, I'll give them the land. I don't want to do any time, though. It's like, no. Sure. And I think they wanted me to do some time so they could see we put the bad man away and took his property when I wasn't.
Well, that's
bad.
cover. Was cover for just stealing your property.
I believe
so. I mean,
so.
really. Because if all they would have charged you was that little obscure BS and stole your property and a bunch of your cash, that wouldn't have looked nearly as good as if they could put you in for a little while.
Yeah. Being at that prison, at one point, the warden pulled me aside and said, I've never told this to anyone, but you don't belong here. We're going to get you out of here. I'm like, thank you, And because I was in there with some pretty serious guys,
sure,
some of them, it was a gray area. Did the guy really sell trade secrets to China or whatever? Sure. But it is what it is. So I got in, got out. But now I'm working at, for 4 years, I was the marketing and entertainment director at the Regalia Hotel Resort at Lake Ozark, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And we put on a lot of big events there. I created the Missouri Cannabis Festival there. It was one of the big cash cows and that. But now I'm working at Mother Nature's Riverfront Retreat, which is, I believe, in Camden County. It's in Macks Creek.
It is. It's Camden County.
Yeah, and it's in Macks Creek, Missouri. It's 310 acres on the big Niagara River. And so I'm there doing the marketing. I'm putting on events. We built a concert stage, and we're drawing a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
You know, we had the Schwag Stock 51 out there on Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
Had a nice crowd. And we're trying to do everything as professional as possible, you know, professional accounting, professional banking, and security. And it's just not a crazy drug camp by any means. There's no motive. I'm 56 years old now. You know, I'm not out trying to sell bags of weed, which apparently is legal now. You know, no big thing.
Well, you're not allowed to. You don't have a license. You didn't get permission from the government, my friend. You're not allowed to. You have to get permission from Uncle Sugar before you can do anything in the state of Missouri when it comes to weed. Come on now. Don't think this is free market and totally free in the state of Missouri, because you'd be wrong.
Oh yeah, I understand that. But we're just selling camping. We got RV sites. There's some cabins and tent camping. We float a lot of boats. Last night we did a full moon float, and over 150 people showed up on a Tuesday night to float down the river, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful weather, clear skies, and you could see your shadow. There was moon shadow. And we
moon shadows. Did you have to put sunscreen on? You get a moon burn?
I was worried about a moon burn. I was.
Isn't that a Cat Stevens song?
I think
Moon
so.
burn?
That was
No,
the
moon
joke
shadow.
last night. And, you know, it's cool. We decorated the boats with glow sticks, but, you know, I'm great at marketing, and I can float boats. And in the past, we've been there 8 weeks, and the gross revenue is already more than it was all of last year, you know, just in 8 weeks.
That's
so,
awesome.
you know, we impressed Oak Star Bank, you know, they're like, and I've told them of the plan of we want to finish that phase 3 plan. We want to build cabins. We want to put in more RV sites. And, so yeah, I'm working out there, and I've moved here. I live in Camden County, and you know I've been working in the area for a while. I've put on Schwag Stock events. I know the area well. I had an apartment in St. Louis that I gave up, and I want to just play music out here, have people come in. I thought it was cool how like those entertainers in Branson, they build a theater, and they're like, just come see us, you know, 6 days a week. And if people come out here and see me play music through the summertime, that'd be great. And we're going to hire a lot of other groups too. You know, we've been hiring reggae bands. We hope to get some bluegrass out there, some country music. And
all right.
We built a really nice stage. You
I'll
saw
come
it
listen
out
to
there.
some bluegrass. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's an absolutely gorgeous property, which leads me to say, you better watch out now, because we done gave the location away. They'll be wanting another state park out there. It's awful.
Well, that's what we're like worried about. It's like, are they going to target us just because we're out there playing music? But look at Ozark Amphitheater. You know,
Sure.
they're running music. There's people out there smoking weed. If you try hard enough and run around that parking lot and ask everyone out in that lot, hey, can you sell me some cocaine? Somebody's probably going to do it. You know.
Hey, you get
almost bank on it.
it could be said about a lot of the establishments down here on the water. I mean, this is. Let's not pretend this isn't somewhat kind of a Sodom and Gomorrah of the Midwest in some.
We got to be honest with ourselves.
If we're going to be honest with ourselves,
better be honest.
Party
That's
Cove.
right.
I found a Party Cove VHS. Like Girls
boy.
Gone Wild at like a gas station when I was like 10, man. I'm like, what is this? And it's like Party Cove. I'm like, I've heard of that. So
Never been the same since, have you?
no.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I think, I hope, and I believe our new sheriff is not going to be one who's going to just single you out and discriminate, because that's what it is, discrimination in that aspect. Right. Because if you're going to go after that, then okay, let's get on down here, because I guarantee you, these hippies might be smoking a little weed, which is legal.
Yep.
But you go to some of these other establishments, you're going to find that hard shit. You're going to find that cocaine. You're going to find that ecstasy. You're going to find all those rave drugs.
Yep.
Right there.
Sure enough.
You know what I mean? And but again, I'm kind of the mindset, like, I've had friends that have died from drug overdoses. I've seen it. I've seen all the aspects of it. But at the end of the day, everybody's got one life to live. And if somebody wants to live their life that way and they're not affecting anybody else, honestly, I don't really care.
And there's the real key, affecting somebody else. And let's be quite candid. When you go down here on the Strip and you go in those bars, first of all, the alcohol idiots are a hell of a lot worse than anybody I've ever seen on any kind of drug. Now, I must admit, I'm a little bit sheltered. I haven't been around a bunch of people on heroin and other things of that nature, so I misunderstand. But as far as I can tell, your fighting, your aggravation, your silliness, your retardedness, your shootings, all of these things, generally happen simply from alcohol.
Alcohol abuse, yeah.
The perils
It's
of
horrible.
The perils of alcohol are huge.
Absolutely.
When you look at your domestic assaults, when you look at your DWIs,
Sure.
wrecks, deaths, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands. And Bill Hicks had a really good monologue that was on the Tool album when I was a kid, where he's like, I really think drugs have done some good things for us. I do. And if you don't believe that, I want you to do me a favor tonight. I want you to go home and take all your albums, all your CDs, all your cassettes, and burn them. He's like, because all the musicians who made all that music that's enhanced your lives throughout the years were really high on drugs.
Probably a whole bunch of them at one time or another.
And again, like I said, I mean, I know you get into some of the dirty, the epidemic drugs are what I really hope we can do something about. The opioids, the fentanyl, all those things that are just
the man-made stuff.
Oh yeah. It's
really.
Well, methamphetamine is just a horrible problem.
But it's not like it was. I don't think, at least, not like it was back in the 90s. Is it as bad?
I don't see it as bad. I don't see people
like in the
freaking out all over the place.
90s,
Used to be people just wandering around parking lots who were just like, "Whoa,
Twacked.
what is wrong with you?"
Yeah. The meth and the opioids is kind of the new meth, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it seems like a lot of those people are real reclusive. They're not like, let's go to a camp out.
No.
People at a camp out, they're smoking a little bit of weed and
enjoying, just vibing.
They're just vibing, yeah. And occasionally we'll get someone that's a little too drunk, and we got to have a talk with. And then Mother Nature's. We would love for the police departments and sheriff's departments to come out there and work off duty, and if there's a concern that this is crazy, right now
they're gonna know.
We want them to work out there. We want them on site, and then they'll see for themselves. We're just trying to play some music and sell some camping, and if there's an idiot, please gracefully extract them and not bum anyone out in the process. And if this guy needs a timeout in jail, and if he needs to see a judge because he's a knucklehead, let's take care of that. If you get 1,000 to 2,000 people together, there's going to be one knucklehead.
Absolutely. Every time.
I don't care where you're at. You're absolutely right. And most of them could be sober. And there's still going to be an idiot in there somewhere.
It doesn't even take 1,000. I've been to plenty house parties with like 50 where somebody's breaking stuff, falling over them.
Sure, absolutely. So when you think about all this, folks, and I think you're going to be okay in Camden County. I think you're going to be all right as long as the feds don't do something stupid, and then we'll have to do something stupid with them. But anyhow, just as citizenry here in Camden County, the people here in Camden County they're just awesome people. They believe in freedom. They believe in liberty. And I think for a big part, as long as you don't, Jefferson said, as long as it doesn't pick my pocket or break my leg, what is concern of it is mine. And if you think about that, if it isn't taking money out of my pocket and it doesn't hurt me physically, my property, or my friends, or my family, why do I care what you do? Go have fun. Go do what you want to go do. It's on private property. Now, what I was trying to illustrate earlier, too, you go down here on the Strip where you've got these little facilities. People are going in there for X amount of hours, doing whatever it is they're doing, certainly drinking. I would say that it is much more dangerous wandering around down on the Strip than it would be ever going to one of these things.
Yeah, it's a campground. People are camping.
Exactly.
They're staying overnight.
And it was then, too. And that's part of my point. It was then, too. It was when you were doing it down here on the Strip, or down at below Bagnell Dam, when you had Lake Ozark law enforcement there. When you were at down in Arkansas, you're talking about, you're doing the same thing. It's just people getting together, having some fun, listening to some great music. And by the way, you're a good singer. And you're an excellent bass player. So
thank you. Yeah.
I told our folks, I went out. I wanted to meet you. I wanted to see what was going on. And I'll probably come another time.
No, we'd love to see you out there.
So it was just good music. And I like to people watch too. So
I'm of the mindset it's another. I like tourism.
Yeah.
I like the fact that people come to the lake. I really do. I know a lot of people bitch. You see it all the time. They have the NFT party, no more tourists, whatever.
They sure like their jobs and the money.
I was about to say, I love it. So I look at it as, you talked about Branson earlier, and we're going to get into this tomorrow with the lodging tax discussion some, but to me, Branson is it's diversified now, but for a long time it was very singularly focused on their shows, and a lot of it was hokey, hee-haw,
Right,
be
yeah,
it
yeah.
like the bald knobbers, and, just goofball like crap that is not going to survive. I'm sorry, if that stuff's there in 20 years, I'll be really surprised. People my age do not want to see the bald knobbers. At least I don't. I had to see it with my grandma. I don't want to see it again.
Me too. I saw it when I was a kid. I went in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeehaw, man. So, to me, the more diverse. So we've got the amphitheater. We've got Shady's that does concert. We've got. Is the Regalia still open? Is it still?
Yeah, they're in operation, but
They're barely hanging on. But don't get me started on that.
What if
Right.
they paid their taxes? I know they owe a lot of property.
They owe a lot of bills.
They're doing their thing. We've got all these different venues, and to me, the more venues, because not everybody wants to go to the amphitheater and sit, asshole to elbow in a crowd and watch a show and then have to jack with the thing. Me personally, if we could get some rad bands out here on the river at a campground,
Oh yeah,
I'm going there.
there you go.
That's to me like it's just another venue, another thing. They're going to pay their taxes. They're going to have their sales tax.
Yeah.
It's just more to our plate, and with everything coming in, the Oasis. I'm not a fan of how that's gone on with the government and all the subsidies and the BS that they're doing there. I think it's all trash. But I still say, at the end of the day, when it all gets done, we're going to have an advantage over Branson, I feel like, because we've got the nightlife. They don't have it. You don't have a lot of bar scene down there.
No.
But we've got the bar scene. We've got the entertainment. We're getting the shows. We're getting all these things here that make us more of a well-rounded destination.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a great thing.
Well, there's a shortage of RV sites in the area too. There's only so many RV parks.
Really? Are you? Oh,
Are you serious?
Hey,
Have you
they're
been-
building. Okay, let's put it this way: there's a lot of them on the lake right now, but there's none that are out on the Niagara River. There's a shortage of any Niagara River stuff.
Okay, I'll give you that.
To me, the Niagara River is like my lake. Like if I'm not gonna mess with. I don't want to be
No, I don't.
swamped by a cruiser or anything. If I'm gonna go on the water, I'm kicking it on the river.
There you
Personally.
Yeah.
But-
I'd love to get on a kayak and just kind of look at nature going by and everything else and all that good stuff. We're going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
We're coming up on 8 o'clock, folks, on Radio Free Missouri, Lake Ozark, real state-of-the-art studios on Dam Radio. For the last couple of hours, we've just been talking freely here with Jimmy Tebeau and listened to his story and everything that's happened to him. And now we've come back around full circle to, you really never have been stopped. A hell of a hit, though, the hell of a hit. And you've had to readjust your life. But everything happens for a little bit of a reason, and I'll be a little selfish. Honestly, I'm glad to have finally met you after, dealing with this and talking about this issue for some time. And I'm happy you're back in Camden County, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the support. I was kind of nervous about making this jump and, going from a resort to a campground, Regalia, that wasn't working out so well over there. I did what I could for while I could, but there's a lot more opportunity out here, and it's a beautiful place. Mother Nature's Riverfront Retreat in Macks Creek. I manage all the social media and the marketing out there. We're booking events, booking bands. I'm playing music out there. We're having floating a lot of boats, renting RV sites, and we're looking big for 2025.
Hey, I tell you, you talk about that. Just down the river from you is a new place that friend of ours owns. She's the gal that's going to be on here with me tomorrow. It's called Riverbird Winery. Have you heard about it?
Yeah.
So, for one, it's just an awesome place. But I mean, they've got a great spread of property over there. Maybe you guys could collaborate on something. Especially, I think they're downriver from you.
Yeah, they are. I know. We've been trying to work with all the local businesses. If we all work together, we're all in the same boat. Let's row the same direction.
How about so we have all of these poker runs on boats and bikes. How about a kayak? Yeah, you're just floating in one direction, but you got to stop each place.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you can start there at the.
Well, it's a Niagara. You could start. You could start out at was it NR? Well, you could start at NRO.
No, you got the lake. I was thinking behind the lake.
Oh yeah.
Start behind Lake Niagara because that's upstream from you, right?
Yeah.
The dam.
You could put in at the dam or at the Whistle Bridge.
Okay, there you go.
Oh yeah, I guess getting through the Whistle Bridge would be kind of a trip. You'd have to.
Well, you could portage it.
Yeah. You have to
why
portage
not?
that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
But yeah, I think, like I said, the Riverbird place is really cool, and I think could be kind of some cross marketing things there for you guys maybe in the future because there's not much. I mean, on Niagara River, you don't have very much available for people to go to. It's kind of coveted. Like, I don't blame somebody. If I had 300 acres of riverfront property, I wouldn't let nobody on it. It'd be
I hear
me.
ya.
House in the middle. Nobody.
Well, with this marketing I've been doing, I've been bringing in a lot of new people that have never heard of the place. And there's some locals that haven't heard of it. And they're like, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful. You guys are doing great things out here. Like last night, we were getting people driving in from Columbia. One girl drove in from Wisconsin for this full moon float.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, she's like, nothing happens like this up in Wisconsin. Wow. She just follows my band page.
Okay, all right.
And she works on weekends, so she messaged the band. It's like, are you guys doing anything fun during the week? And I'm like, well, there's this full moon float. We're not really playing, but you might enjoy it. And she's still out there. She drove down for a couple days. She's got to work this weekend in Wisconsin. But we're drawing people in from all over, and we're hoping to help the tourism industry, bring a lot of new faces into the area, and something for locals to come out and do that's affordable. Some of these events, they're up to $100. Some of them are $20. Some we're making free.
Wow.
We're trying to make it available for everyone.
Very good. Very good. Well, again, I really appreciate you coming in here and doing this with us. I'd imagine we're definitely going to talk in the future. So Nathan, thanks you for coming in and kind of adding into things here a little bit.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had to meet the guy. Like I said, it's kind of weird being here because I'm like you. I looked at this when it happened and was like, man, those bastards. Like,
at least.
And what's funny is through the whole thing, all the newspapers were on my side. I made the cover of the Riverfront Times twice saying this guy got screwed,
Yeah.
And any newspaper article, and people are supporting me now, they're like, you got railroaded, man.
Yep, sure
they took
enough.
your property, and it was a crappy deal. So
That's
I'm
exactly
glad
right.
that I'm doing what I'm doing now, and I appreciate all the love and support.
That's good, man. I appreciate you again. Thank you. We're about ready to sign off. Again, I just thank you so much for coming in, and I really hope nothing but the best for you. And Mother Nature's campground down there and Schwag Stock Fest continues on, and
Yes.
and you're as successful as you can possibly be.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, thank you, my friend. Folks, that is it for us tonight, and we're going to sign off here next week. Honestly, I don't know what we're going to do yet, but make sure you tune in. It'll be good. We got the Fitzwell Factor tomorrow evening at 6:00. JR is on from 2 to 4, and we got other shows going on. You can check out Nadine, and other things that are happening. And just continue to listen to Damn Radio. We've always got new and interesting content. And we're signing off from Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. It is Ike Skelton on Radio Free Missouri.